I'm the Tone Gamer. Subscribe.
Hey YouTube, what happened? My YouTube shorts used to get like 500 plus views, and now lately my YouTube shorts are barely getting 10 views. Maybe I fell off the algorithm train. I feel like when I had 100 subs, I was getting more views, opposed to 4,300. But it is what it is, I guess. Even if I'm only getting a few views and you're one of them watching, thanks for watching. Now let's check out and see what IGN has to say about Shadow of the Erdtree. I'm stoked to play this. I'm stoked. Stoked!
When I gave Elden Ring a 10 2 years ago, I did so not just because it's an incredible game, but also because it raised the bar for open world games as a whole. The way it encourages exploration, rewards curiosity, and challenges you to find your own individual solutions to difficult combat encounters by including tons of different viable weapons, spells, and other build options is absolutely exemplary. Now, From Software is back to raise the bar on everyone yet again, this time when it comes to what you would expect from a simple DLC. Shadow of the Erdtree may not do anything radically different from the base game, but this expansion somehow feels like a scaled-down version of that same experience.
Oh, that's cool. Look at that area.
Recapturing all the magic of playing Elden Ring for the first time, with more content packed within than many full-price games. Its unexpectedly large realm is filled with new secrets, new discoveries, a ton of new build options to experiment with, as well as some of the most challenging and unforgettable boss battles Souls fans will have ever seen.
Divine Beast. Yeah, the DLC could be a game on its own.
I strolled into Shadow of the Erdtree thinking that I was some kind of Elden Lord badass, having defeated Malenia, Mohg, Plasudasax, the Elden Beast, and every other big threat around.
Freaking
My level
Mohg.
150 character was armed with fully upgraded gear and the maximum number of flasks, but let me tell you, it did not take very long for the realm of Shadow to humble me.
Dang. That guy might be a problem.
The only requirement to access the new areas is to beat Radahn and Mohg, which, granted, is no small feat, you're gonna want to over-prepare before stepping foot into this new arena.
This is why I didn't do New Game Plus.
From Software definitely skirts the line between fair and unfair with some of the later boss designs in particular.
That's
Perhaps
cool,
getting
dude.
closer than ever.
Blue and red.
Crucially, it never actually crosses that threshold. And that masterful tightrope walk, along with some truly spectacular boss design, results in some of the most thrilling and satisfying bosses Elden Ring and the entire Souls-like genre has to offer. It's not just the quality of those fights either. Erdtree has them in quantity too. According to our count, there are more than 40 bosses, with 10 of those being the big showstopper fights that reward you with a remembrance upon defeat.
40
Compare that
bosses.
to the more than 100 in the base game, and it's a significant chunk. When you bring up the map, it may not seem like the realm of Shadow is that big, but it is incredibly dense because it's stacked in layers. Paths lead upwards towards ruins suspended in the sky, others delve deep beneath the surface, and some even put you in directions that you might not have believed you can even be pulled. You might find a hidden ladder tucked away in the far corner of a castle rampart, only to follow that trail for an hour before it eventually spills out into a totally new, otherwise inaccessible area. But even with all the discoveries to be made, I never felt lost or unsure of where I should go next. The main goal of this DLC is to follow the footsteps of the demigod Miquella, who left his flesh behind and fled to the realm of Shadow. These footsteps are marked by large crosses that elegantly serve as subtle signposts to let you know when you're in the vicinity of a plot-critical path, without it ever feeling like your hand is being held as you're nudged in one explicit direction.
That's cool, dude.
Were you guided here by kindly Miquella?
Apart from the main quest, there's a host of new NPCs, including 7 followers of Miquella that you'll encounter at various points in the journey. Each of them have their own small quest line that ties into the main story, and those can even have an effect on some of the later boss battles, depending on your actions.
Or Malenia's brother.
Vile Bale! Oh, terror incarnate!
And while I consider myself a fairly casual enjoyer of Elden Ring's extensive lore compared to some of the scholars out there, even my limited knowledge of the deeper plot let me appreciate some of the fantastic, eye-opening revelations towards the end of the story that are well worth the effort of getting to.
Stick it in his ass!
It took me about 25 hours or so to beat the final boss of Shadow of the Erdtree, but I could easily see myself putting in another 15 or 20 on just this one playthrough. I still have a handful of
Nice.
optional bosses I need to go back to cross off my list, areas on the map that I haven't fully explored, weapons and
That's
skills
cool.
I haven't gotten to play around with yet, and side quests that I want to follow to completion. That's
love
pretty
glowing
much
flowers.
exactly like when I completed my review of the base game after about 80 hours. Which makes sense because Shadow of the Erdtree is essentially a mini Elden Ring adventure. It condenses the whole experience down to something comparatively compact, all of it satisfyingly tuned specifically for endgame characters who thought they've seen it all.
Looks sick, dude. I love the sky areas too.
While I haven't had any holy shit moments of awe, like the first time I took the elevator down to the Shifra River, exploration and discovery throughout the Realm of Shadow is still a delight thanks to its stellar art design, a great variety in the areas you get to explore, and the tantalizing rewards pretty much everywhere you turn.
So it's the Shifra River. I always
There
said
are 8 brand new
Siofra.
weapon types, ranging from throwing knives, to beast claws, to giant Odachi samurai swords. My
Why did
favorite
you
of the
kill
new
the
arsenal,
deer?
though, is the light greatsword, specifically the Milady. True to its name, the Milady has
The
a very
Milady.
regal-looking moveset with combos that flow nicely into each
Milady.
other and hit hard, but are also relatively fast compared to actual greatswords. For me, it's a sweet spot. I actually swapped off of my powerful dual bandit curved sword bleed build to instead rock a strength and dexterity focused build using one of these and found great success for the majority of the DLC.
Got some new weapons.
I experimented with a couple of other
New
weapons
builds.
as well, something that is possible thanks to the ample opportunities to collect a bunch more Ancient Dragon smithing stones of both the standard and somber varieties. However, in all my travels, I found that while the new weapon types are fun, I mean, there's certainly an appeal to going hand to hand
Those
against an army of hands,
freaking hands.
none of them ultimately measured up to the strength of the weapons I
Those
carried over
hands
from
are
the
gonna
base
catch
game.
hands.
It's totally possible that there are some talismans I was missing to really make the new one sing, but I was hoping to go through the entirety of Erdtree with a brand new build. Instead, I found myself swapping back to my bread and butter bleed build to get the kind of damage that I needed when the going got tough. Still, variety is the spice of life, and Erdtree is one hot dish. Not only are there a ton of new weapons, there are also plenty of new spells, Ashes of War,
Hell
Spirit
yeah,
Ash summons,
dude.
and talismans to cover an enormous range of different playstyles.
Can't wait.
There's now a talisman that enhances two-handed attacks, one that decreases spellcasting time dramatically, but causes you to take increased damage, another that increases the damage of abilities that involve stances, and another still that increases your damage every time you defeat an enemy. And yes, there are also plenty that are just better versions of very useful talismans that you probably already have. And there's no shame in sticking to what
Maximum
works.
stamina.
There are so many fun new builds that I couldn't help but wish that larval tears were a little more plentiful so I could respec my character a little more freely. I started to run out by the time I finished the campaign, and I still have a ton of different builds that I want to try.
You gotta get them larval tears. The joy of freedom.
The journey through the Realm of Shadow is structured very similarly to the Lands Between, in that the map is split up into a number of different regions. Right from the get-go, you're able to head anywhere you want to. You could follow the initial Mikula Cross to the very first Legacy dungeon called Bellarat and deal with the new horrific scorpion enemies, or head across the bridge to the east and work your way over to the magic-filled Castle Ensis,
I like bridges.
where you have to deal with this jerk. Or you could find a way to bypass the need to go through either of those and get straight to the Skadu Altus, which largely serves as the central hub of the Realm of Shadow. Then you could head directly towards the Shadow Keep, fighting your way to the top of it in order to take on one of the major bosses, or going through one of its other exits to explore otherwise inaccessible parts of the map. It's
Hell yeah.
a liberating sense of freedom and the same masterclass level of open world design as the base game, just on a scale that isn't quite so vast. Of course, whether or not you should make a mad dash towards the Shadow Keep is another question entirely. Even though this is endgame content and you probably won't be leveling up quite as fast as you did in the original campaign, there's a separate power scaling system that only works while you're within the Realm of Shadow. Scattered throughout the lands are Skadu tree fragments that you can collect and turn in at Sites of Grace to increase your overall damage and resistances. Likewise, you can also find revered Spirit Ash blessings to increase the damage and survivability of your Spirit Ash summons. These are two very smart inclusions as they add a much needed sense of progression, a valuable reward for exploration, and something else to hunt for if you're getting wrecked by a boss and need to come back when you're stronger. All while cleverly preserving some of the original and game's balance if you're bravely tackling this DLC before circling back to beat the full game. From Software
Amazing.
says that Shadow of the Erdtree is the only expansion Elden Ring will get, so it's fortunate that it's hard to imagine a better DLC than this, as long as you're not hoping for it to do anything radically outside the box. Everything that I loved about the original has been condensed into an incredibly tight package, one that's the size of many standalone games all on its own, and can only really be considered small in comparison to the absolutely massive world of Elden Ring itself. Erdtree is absolutely jam-packed with secrets, valuable treasures, challenging boss battles, and horrific monstrosities to
I like
face
that,
off
dude.
against, as well as cool new weapons, spells, ashes of war, spirit ashes, talismans, and more to play around with and use to find even more novel ways to tackle its memorably brutal battles. Add on some very interesting lore revelations, not to mention the same spectacular visual design and stellar music that accompanies its larger-than-life bosses, and you've got what is certainly one of the best DLC expansions
Yes!
I've ever played.
10 out of 10!
For more Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, make sure that you're all set to go with our checklist of how to prepare for the DLC, along with our video showing how to level up quickly if you're not at a high enough level to tackle it yet. And for everything else, keep it here on IGN.
Sick! Sorry, the sun is, shining, see that? Anyway, those hands are gonna catch hands, you know what I mean? Anyway, dude, looks good. It comes out this weekend, and I will definitely be streaming it 100%. Looking forward to it, are you? Of course you are. Thanks for watching if you did. Peace out.
Subscribe.